I'm Officer Kiefer with the Cumberland Township Police Department, also the School Resource Officer for Gettysburg Area School District. Today we're going to speak about an important topic, and that is safety in our schools. One of the things that we do is prepare our students and our staff for any unusual acts of violence that may occur in our schools. So today we're going to speak about the run, hide, fight. During this presentation, I'm going to present information about active shooter incidents and how you can prepare for them, what your reaction should be, and how to manage the aftermath of being involved. Don't think of these as progressive steps. First I run, then I hide, then I fight. Think of them instead as options that best suit your particular situation and location during the assault. An active shooter on school campus is in search of targets. We want to use run, hide, fight to undermine the objective. So why do we prepare? Preparing for danger is not a new idea. Schools have been responsible for preparing students for years. Danger preparation begins in schools as early as pre-K. The event is typically over before law enforcement arrives, and staff and students need to be aware of ways to stay safe. The Department of Homeland Security defines an active shooter incident as an incident that involves an individual that is actively engaged in killing or attempting to kill people in a confined and populated area, and there is no pattern or method to their selection of victims. Some common characteristics of these events are that they are very dynamic and are over fairly quickly. Most events are over in 15 minutes or less and are usually due to shooter committing suicide or being stopped by someone. As I mentioned, most events are carried out by only one attacker. Less than 1/3 of these events are school shootings, and over half of them occur in the workplace. So who is an active shooter? The active shooter is someone that is actively engaged in committing mass murder. This usually is the result of a real or perceived grievance that has no other options for resolution. It is very important to understand that there is no typical active shooter. There is no profile that can be used to identify the active shooter. Sometimes these events occur at a random location. In 1/4 of cases, the shooter had no prior relationship with the victims. I would like to point out that most of the shooters are male, and most common age groups are 15 to 19 and 35 to 44. The law enforcement response to active shooter events has evolved since Columbine school shooting. It used to be that the arriving officer would arrive at the scene and wait for the SWAT team to handle the situation. The current law enforcement response is for the arriving law enforcement officers to seek and engage the shooter immediately. This means the officer will bypass the injured and anyone that is not a threat until the shooter has been stopped. It is important for you to remain calm and follow the instructions of the officers. Keep your hands open and visible to them. Avoid approaching any officers unless directed to do so. The officers will most likely be very aggressive and commanding. One major issue that is being realized from this approach is the rescuing of wounded in a timely manner. In the past, the law enforcement officers would secure a location before allowing firefighters and medics to enter the scene. But it may take hours for the police to secure an active shooter scene. In the last section, you learned the characteristics of an active shooter event. You learned that there was no typical active shooter, and you learned how law enforcement responds to an active shooting incident. Understanding that there is no profile of an active shooter and that 25% of events are random, we can identify some indicators that someone may be an active shooter. There are 2 points that we can intervene in the stages of an active shooter. First, there is the action point. This is the point that you first recognize that a person is displaying violence indicators. Your action at this point may prevent an active shooter incident from occurring. Next, there is the flash point. This is when the violence occurs. Someone usually indicates that they had a concern about the shooter, but never reported their suspicions. So some pre-attack indicators are observing public safety response. An example would be someone calling 911 for something that's actually not occurring, but just watching the response of whether it be ambulance, fire, or police response, see how long it takes them, that type of thing. Discreet use of cameras, sketching, and note-taking is another example. Repeated visits may try to disguise appearance. Attention to or avoidance of security systems. Inappropriate clothing for the season. An example of that would be kind of maybe a long overcoat on a 90-degree day outside. Tactical gear, that's pretty obvious. The other thing that I see posted on social media, things students may write or say in the classroom. So as students in the classroom, obviously we speak to our friends. Could be some indicators that they, might say or something they write. Or as teachers, we listen or see things on social media. And those are things that we need to tell someone about. It's our job to protect this school. So if you see anything out of the ordinary, say something. It is important to understand that you must take full responsibility for your survival in an active shooter incident. You cannot wait for instructions from the police or even your supervisor. You must develop a survival mindset now before the event occurs. Developing your survival mindset is accomplished by having awareness, being prepared, and practicing your response to an active shooter incident. Awareness is understanding that you may be involved in an active shooter incident. Awareness is recognizing violence and pre-attack indicators. Awareness is recognizing that an active shooting incident is occurring. Preparation is thinking about how you will respond to an active shooting incident. This is using the what-if approach. What if the shooter is in the lobby? How can I escape? If I can't escape, should I hide or should I fight? Where could I hide? What do I have that I could use as a weapon? Have you considered what you would do if an active shooting event were to occur at your school? Finally, you must rehearse for the event. This can be a mental rehearsal, or it could be a walkthrough of your escape routes, getting into your hiding space, or taking a self-defense course. The first step is to understand what is going on. Did you just hear gunshots? Why are those people running? Keep in mind that the sound of gunshots inside a building are often different than hearing them outside. Frequently, gunshots are thought to be firecrackers or other popping noises. Next, evaluate your options. Can you exit the building without encountering the shooter? Do you have a place to hide? Are you capable of subduing the shooter? Decide on your course of action. Are you going to run, hide, or fight? Once you have decided on your course of action, you need to act. Before we discuss the run, hide, fight options, I would like to introduce you to the terms of cover and concealment. So cover is anything that can stop a bullet from reaching you. Concealment hides you from the shooter's view. So you might ask yourself, does concealment protect you from a bullet? No, it does not. So you think about what might be used as cover in a school. The run option should be utilized when you believe you can exit the building without contact with the shooter, or the hide and fight options are not practical. Exit the kill zone as quickly as possible. Choose a route that moves away from the shooter. Move as fast as possible without exposing yourself to the shooter. If the shooter is close enough to see and engage you, use cover and concealment and evasive movements. Run in 3 to 5 second bursts behind cover. Try to keep others from entering the kill zone and direct others to evacuate. If someone does not evacuate, do not stay to try to convince them. Keep your hands visible to law enforcement and follow their instructions. Remember, it is the duty of law enforcement to seek out and engage the shooter. They will have to make split-second decisions about you as a threat. The officers will most likely be very aggressive and commanding. Do as they say. Do not run towards them unless you are directed to do so. Once you evacuate the building, go to a safe location. Do not leave the scene unless it is unsafe to do so. The law enforcement officers will need to interview you. If you have to leave the scene, contact the law enforcement agency and cooperate with their investigation. If you believe that hiding is your best option, you should find a hiding spot as quickly as possible. The best hiding spot will be a room that is lockable from the inside, provides cover and concealment, and does not restrict your run and hide fight options. In many cases, when encountering a locked door, the shooter will move on. Barricade the door with whatever is available. Find cover. Keep in mind that the door or wall may not provide you cover. Keep silent. Turn down the volume on your cell phone and try to quiet any other inhabitants. Call 911 only when it is safe to do so. Use caution when someone wants to enter the room. If you are unsure that the person at the door is a police officer, call 911 for verification. The law enforcement officers may treat you as a suspect when they locate you. Follow their instructions. You should choose the fight option when you are unable to run or hide, or if you are mentally and physically able to subdue the shooter. It is highly recommended that you do not attempt to locate and confront the shooter, even if you are capable of doing so. You not only put yourself at risk from the shooter, but law enforcement as well. If you do need to fight the shooter, you should always do so with speed, surprise, and violence of action. This means once you decide to act, you must do so quickly and use the element of surprise. Violence of action means that you are prepared to dominate the shooter until he is no longer a threat. This is not a playground fight. You are fighting to preserve your life and should use any and all means available to you. There are no fair fighting rules. Use the buddy system with as many others as possible. Again, we are not looking for a fair fight. Use numbers to your advantage. It is also easier to be brave when someone else is there to help. Restrain the shooter until law enforcement arrives if you safely can. Otherwise, incapacitate the shooter and escape. If the shooter is incapacitated, make sure to cover the weapon with a trash can or lay something over it. Make sure to let law enforcement know where the weapon is. Never pick up the weapon and take it to law enforcement. All right, the last thing that I want to add is the tip line for the Gettysburg Area School District. It is located on their homepage, and anyone can go in there and give a tip out if they wish to remain anonymous, and those tips will be provided to the appropriate person.